Hey, good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order the May 8th special meeting of the Westerly School Committee. Members present are Mrs. Cook, Mrs. Dunn, Mr. Gencarelli, myself, Mrs. Bowdy, Mr. Ober, and Mrs. Wycall. Everybody please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Mr. Gencarelli, can you please read the Wesley Public Schools mission?
It's to create an inspiring, challenging, and supportive environment where students are encouraged and assisted in reaching their highest potential.
Thank you. Okay, so our next agenda item is our budget. So at our last meeting, we had quite a discussion about what the potential cuts can be for this budget. I know that there was definitely interest on this committee to try to see if there was something we could do to kind of alleviate some of those cuts. I think, for me, I'll just kick it off from here. I think the budget itself is kind of simple in a way in terms of, or at least my understanding of it is simple, that it's, we have a pot of money. We have two types of costs. We have fixed costs and we have our discretionary costs. Our fixed costs being like our salaries and our building maintenance and all that kind of stuff. The discretionary being more the programming and the supplies and those things that we do for the kids. The fixed costs are fixed and we can't really change those. Those are the contracts we have with our teachers, with the bus companies. We have to pay for our electric, our gas and that sort of stuff. And then we have our discretionary, which I thought when the Wesley administration gave us their proposals for those discretionary costs, I thought that they were very minimal. I think that they kept things as low as they possibly could. We're definitely in a tight spot because again, we're level funded by the town council. And we knew that going in. We were told before the meeting, before we even voted on our budget, that plan on being level funded again. But it's unfortunate because our fixed costs go up every year. And in order to make up that gap, we keep taking away from our discretionary costs, but we're at a point now where there's nothing more to take away in terms of those discretionary costs. But that's, at the bottom of really what we can do. So now we're faced with really looking at some of those fixed costs and how we can get rid of those. And it's not something I know that anybody up here wants to do. But I was thinking it might be beneficial if we could. Well, I'll open up for discussion first, and then we'll go forward from there. So, is there any members who would like to, Ms. Bowdy?
Oh, there we go. So, in addition to what Mr. Salino said, we have to understand that our enrollment is finally hitting us where it hurts in the pocketbook because the hold harmless is done. So our state aid has also gone down this year. So in effect, we're level funded by the town, but we've lost money from the state. And you have to couple that with over the last couple of years, we've been using ESSER funds as they're designated, but that's also going to be going away. So we're at a juncture here, I think, where we really need to understand what this looks like next year and the following years. The state of Rhode Island budget is not going to be pretty either. So I think we're at crunch time, and if we don't do something now, we're going to have to do something next year and every single year after that. We're running out of options here.
Anybody else? Ms. Wycall?
I understand and I hear everything that is being said, but I do believe that based on what we need to do for the students in the classrooms, when I looked at the positions that were being proposed to be eliminated, the way I would personally look at it would be returning the 2 grade 1 teachers, the 2 grade 2 teachers, and a grade 4 teacher, which totals just under $420,000. So taking that into account, I went through the budget line by line, which we didn't really do this year. And I had several questions and thoughts that I wanted to share. The first thing I guess I would like to have a conversation and ask Dr. Garceau to maybe talk to us about the assistant superintendent position. I'm wondering what his vision for that position is going forward, and if he can explain to us, or me specifically, how he sees that position specifically really moving the posts for the students and their learning outcomes. So I guess, can I start there and then continue after?
Certainly. So we have had this conversation previously about the role of the assistant superintendent and the need for that position to help manage the many mandates that come down from the state of Rhode Island, the increased expectations around meeting the needs of our multi-language learners, the increased expectations about growing our career and technical programming and coursework there, the planning for and delivery of professional development around curriculum and curriculum rollouts in high quality curriculum across the board, the monitoring of our homeless population, our homeschooling population, and those other functions. So a lot of what the assistant superintendent does is drive the instructional motor of the organization, working with principals, directors, building leaders, teacher leaders, to ensure that we do exactly what we say we're going to do when we talk about strengthening core instruction and the systems of support that ensure that kids are successful. Everything from coordinating state assessments to providing for that high quality curriculum and the PD that supports it, the direction of the professional development around issues of Title IX, of Title I, of Title III, of Title II, of Title IV, and many other functions. So it's through that work that the assistant superintendent does do the instructional leadership for the district. Sad too, I know, whether it's termed an assistant superintendent or a director of curriculum or a director of instruction, there's virtually not a district anywhere that doesn't have a similar position.
So in your opinion, it's totally valuable and non-dispensable for our district?
Without a question.
Okay, so that being said, that's about $162,000 contract at this point. So if that's completely off the table and there's no appetite with anybody else to discuss that further, I guess we can look at some of the other positions that caught my eye as I was going through. We have 3, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have several administrative assistant and executive assistant, school year secretaries, calendar year secretaries between the superintendent's office that has 3 administrative assistants to 1 person. We have 6 between school year secretary, calendar year secretary, executive assistant, and a CTE executive assistant, 6 positions, the high school. We have almost 4, it looks like 3.76, however that's possible, at the middle school, totaling about $620,000 in administrative assistance. I would like to propose that we remove, if we were to remove 1 from the assistant superintendent, you'd still have 2. We could remove 1 from the high school and 1 from the middle school and save just under 150,000 and put that towards some of these teaching positions. That would be the first place I personally would like to start.
So to clarify, the assistant superintendent has an executive assistant. She has 1. I also have an executive assistant. Each principal in the district has an executive assistant. They're key to the work that goes on in the office, but I think there may be some misunderstanding about how many are assigned to the main office or what the work is that they do.
Okay, well, the budget says 3, has superintendent's office, FTEs was your salary and 3 administrative assistants. So-
Right. They appear under my budget, but they're not my secretaries. There's Rose Falcone, for example, is 1. She is my executive assistant. She's also the clerk for the school committee. Jenna Reel is the executive assistant to Ms. Story. Michelle Barber also works in the main office space. So she's charged to my line, but she's not an executive assistant to either of us. Or is, and her name escapes me. She's just moved down the hall to Cindy's office. Justine Hooven. She is not a secretary to me or to Dr. Story.
Okay. What's the difference between a calendar year secretary and a school year secretary? Okay, so that's where I'd like to start. I think, I mean, that's a lot of administrative assistance for the staff that we have. I don't know. I mean, I guess, do I make a motion and we can discuss it as a committee? Or should I keep going on my questions?
Sorry, I think just go with questions for right now. Again, and it's just, I think, we just want to be careful, right? This, we want to do what we can to save jobs, but it's not our position to determine who's essential to the district and who isn't. It just isn't. Like, we don't, what roles they fill. You don't know what Rose does in and out on a daily basis. So it's hard to say that we can just get by without her, without knowing what she does. It's got to be more than just the numbers. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
But you can continue on.
All right, so there were a couple of like tech software expenditures that were kind of high numbers, and I'm wondering if those might be something that we could move to the capital request, or if they're considered like a one-time or once every so many years, and it wouldn't need to be a line item budget. One specific, and I don't know what it is, so I'm asking, finance tech software called Munis Financial and Payroll, which is kind of ironic that we have payroll software and then we don't have a payroll person. $74,000. And then we have something called Strike Falcone. It's like $158,000 across all the schools. I mean, that seems like maybe like a software purchase, or I'm asking because I don't know what they are. And then there was one other that was Chromebooks, new Chromebooks for particular grades. Would that be considered capital? That was like $120,000. That's what I'm asking. I don't know.
So in regards to the finance software, the Munis software, which includes payroll, that's also our entire general ledger package. So that is definitely needed. That's an annual cost. We split the cost for that system with the town. We're on the same fighting that they are.
What do we pay? I don't understand how,
It's for the entire software pack.
and we pay for it every year?
It's software as a service.
Okay. Gotcha. Do you know about the other ones?
The Chromebooks for grades 5 and 9 are purchased every year for a different grade as they come in, and CrowdStrike likes to enter that.
So CloudStrike is a managed detection and response. What it provides for us is 24/7 coverage for ransomware attacks and malware outbreaks. So when we're all on vacation on Christmas, they like to attack us then. So we're actually paying for nearly 3 FTEs by paying that one subscription per year for all of our devices. It's almost, if you don't have it now, the likelihood of us getting cybersecurity insurance for a massive event is 0. So it's a necessary cost.
Annual subscription.
It is.
Okay. That's why I was just checking. They were a big number. Because I thought I'd see what they were. All right. All right. So then there was a bunch of other line item that I sort of questioned, but I guess I wouldn't go through every single one of them. But All right, those are my questions. Thank you.
Anybody, Mrs. Cook?
So as much as I appreciate Ms. Whitehall going line by line, I think unfortunately, we're going to have, every time we bring something up, there's going to be a good reason why we need it. And I agree with what you said, Rob, that we aren't in a position to be making decisions on who's needed and who's not. But what is clear to me is that, I mean, I think there's support on this committee to, based on what we've heard from the teachers union, as well as individual teachers and obviously parents, to look at reinstating the grade 1, the 2 teachers in grade 1, the 2 teachers in grade 2, and the 1 teacher in grade 4. I know we've been told, you know, we shouldn't be taking money out of our fund balance. It's not solid practice. Where will we be next year? I'm willing to take that risk because we didn't bat an eye. We were going to take money out of it for the fields. So classroom teachers, fields, it's a no-brainer for me. If we come to this position next year, we're in the same boat, then we can make those decisions and look at those classroom positions again. But we talk a lot about mental health, and I think we may need less behavioral specialists if we can let the teachers do their jobs and focus on these kids and give them the time and the energy and the dedication they need. And they've made the case to me, just talking to some of them that I've spoken to. We do have small classrooms. We will continue to have small classrooms, but that's not a bad thing. And I'd say, let's try it and see if it works. And let's see how the 3rd grade testing looks like too, if that impacts any of the test scores. It could be an experiment in Westerly. We don't have to be like everybody else in the district. Let's be the leaders on this one. Let's put those elementary classes back, keep them the way they are, and let's not compound the problem. But in terms of where we get the money, I would advocate to take it from fund balance. I think it's cleaner, and I think that we can revisit it again next year.
I'll go Mr. Ober and then Ms. Bowdy.
No, I understand we want to keep all the positions we can, especially in the classroom. But the fund balance is for one-time expenditures if you use it properly. And to say that, well, we'll take our chance, we're not taking a chance. What we're doing is we're putting in a deficit in our budget. So if we do that this year, next year, we're going to need 1% just to cover what we'd already have. We're going to dig ourselves into a hole. Other communities have done it, and they've done over time. They dig themselves into a hole, and that's why we have to avoid doing that. It's a one-time thing that turns into a 2-time thing that turns into a 3-time thing. The reason we're here is because apparently the town council couldn't even bother to look at our budget before making a decision, and we have to live with that. And we can mitigate as best we can, as we've done over the last 3 years, these level funded budgets. But at some point, we're going to have to increase our budget just to meet our needs. And to take it out of fund balance is just putting off that time when they have to do what they need to do. And we're not helping anybody if we make ourselves into a bigger budget problem next year.
So a couple things. I would ask that next year, I mean, all this activity, these flurries of emails and everything at the last minute, they're great. And we understand how you feel, but what's imperative is to let the town council know months before that you support an increase for the school committee. So I would just ask people to, try to communicate throughout the year with the town council. Let them know you're here and what you're thinking. Because we're at the point now where our budget was already approved. So I don't know what we're going to do from here. I agree with Mr. Ober in that anything we take out of fund balance to support things that are not one time does create a deficit, and it's just a problem next year and the year after. And as I stated earlier, we have the perfect storm with the ESSER going away and with state aid being reduced now because of our declining enrollment. And I know both Mrs. Whitehall and Mrs. Cook wanted to advocate to the town council to give us a to give us no increase. And here we are with no increase. And now we're looking at taking it out of fund balance where it shouldn't be coming from. So, and we also didn't do what we normally do and have the line by line conversations or the time with each director to go over things. So I just feel like we're in a really bad place right now.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
I'm going to respond to that comment. First of all, no one was advocating for anything. We knew what they were going to do. Have you watched the town council meeting? Do you actually think that they're going to listen to any input from school committee members or WTA? Have you seen the way they're treating the WTA now? Secondly, I find it's incredulous to me that the two of you who supported a project for the fields for $1.2 million without having the money in place are going to talk about fiscal responsibility. No. So that your credibility is gone. We still don't have the money for the field. We haven't paid for it. And yet you're going to lecture everybody else about, sound fiscal practices and making sure we're not in a hole. You're putting us in a hole. We still don't even have the 500,000 from the council. So if you're going to go there, Ms. Bowdy, that is actually inaccurate. And you talk about sticking to the facts. Nobody advocated to the town council for a level funding.
No, hold on. Nope, not yet. So Ms. Wycall, quiet, please. Ms. Wycall and Ms. Bowdy.
Yeah, I'd like to respond as well. Christine's exactly right. We were not advocating for a level funded budget. We knew that's what was going to happen. What I was advocating for was to be avoiding this a week before it needs to be handed in and suggesting to Dr. Garceau that he comes to us, the school committee, with a level funded budget, knowing that we were going to be in this situation. We could have been doing this 2 months ago. And yes, I absolutely would support taking this from the fund balance, even if we look at it as a 1-year fix. We need to do what's right for the kids right now, and we can figure it out next year.
Good, Ms. Bowdy.
I just think that's a really bad plan. And, if you're going to talk about the money for the fields, that's where money like that comes from. One-time expenses.
Ms. Dunn?
There we go. So I hear both what Ms. Wycall's saying, what Cook's saying, what Ms. Bowdy's saying. And I do think, something I would support is, making sure we have funding for these positions that are on here. And if it has to come from fund balance for this time, that is something that I would support this round. But I do think it talks about a larger issue that, as Ms. Bowdy says, we have to start advocating sooner into on a larger scale. I think the unfortunate thing is this is a growing problem. Education is being put on the back burner, unfortunately, and then districts find themselves in this positions where we're literally hoping and praying we can save multiple classrooms in this case, but the reality is it might be only 1 or 2 classrooms. So I do think this is a conversation that needs to have a bigger platform, and whether it means, earlier conversations with the town council, even on a state level, I think even on a national level, it is important that we talk about the value of education and what it actually looks like in practice to close a classroom. And I also think if we do this group decides to move forward with, using fund balance towards these positions, the pressure is definitely going to be on that. If the money was put there, as Ms. Cook said, we're going to be looking at test scores, people are going to be looking at performance. Can we remove some of the supports that are in place to get more teachers in the classroom in front of kids? So I do think it is something that I would support, but I just think we need to think about really tracking this to see, did we see a change in behavior? What can we go back with and say when we do want to ask for the money to be within the budget? What do we go back and say, hey, look, we put the money there and this is what we got in return?
Thank you. So I think do you want to? I'm going to look for a motion that you want to say something? Go ahead. Yeah, whatever you want, Joe.
So as a teacher for 11 or 12 years and now a principal for 13 years, I'm going to go back to when I was a teacher. The years that I had, hopefully you can hear me. The years that I had 18 or 19 kids, it's much different than when I had 22, 23. I know it's a difference, only 4 kids, and you're thinking, no way. It's a huge difference. It does make an impact. So I think that's an interesting idea to take a chance, Christine. I know other districts have taken chances and it doesn't always work out, but I'm willing to take that chance as well. And with our RICAS scores as low as they are, I think we need to keep our youngest populations, our foundation of kids, to get them as strong as we can as they head into the middle school.
Mr.
So
Salino.
at this point, I was,
So if I just could, and then I don't want to, I don't want to disagree, I'm not disagreeing with anything that's being said up here. I just think it might be in the best interest of everyone to hear from Cindy about that fund balance report that you have there. And bear in mind that we have used fund balance for capital expenses, and you've got some very big ones on the horizon, including the State Street School that we also do not have the funding for. And there have been discussions at the building subcommittee about moving some fund balance there to close that near $2 million gap. So this may all be doable, but I think you want to have all the facts in front of you. So maybe Cindy, if you could talk through that report and your recommendation.
Certainly. So my recommendation would always be to use fund balance for one-time purchases. So going through this report that you all have in the packet I gave you, it's the fund balance report from 2023 that has been audited from May 3rd. So we had an unassigned fund balance at the end of fiscal year 23 of 4.8 million, which was 8.15% of the operating budget. School committee policy requires that we maintain a minimum of 2.5%. So again, school committee policy requires 2.5% of that fund balance be maintained. Anything below that, we're required to have a plan to replenish. Anything over 5% may be used at the school committee's discretion. So in this fiscal year, our unassigned fund balance over the 5% was $1.8 million. The school committee on December 6th committed $1.8 million for the building project, which brought us to an updated unassigned fund balance of 4.98%. For fiscal year 24, the March year-to-date report, I projected a surplus of 1.1 million. That would bring the projected unassigned fund balance as of June 30, 2024 at 4 million, which is 6.87% of the operating budget. So at that, the projected June 30, 24 unassigned fund balance over 5% is 1.1 million. So there is fund balance available. However, once it's used, it's used.
thank you. So at this point, I think it'd be best if, I'm going to seek a motion to balance the budget based off of the superintendent's recommendations at this time with those cuts. And then we can talk, once we have that done, we can talk about having a motion to move some fund balance and for what positions we want to kind of earmark those for. So I seek that motion.
So moved.
Discussion.
I'm just confused. What's the motion? What are we
So
doing?
the motion is basically to accept the proposal that we received at our last school committee meeting, which would be with all those cuts, right? So that will balance the budget. So as of after we vote on this motion, if it passes, we'll have a balanced budget. But then we can sit here and talk about, do we want to take so much money out of fund balance and bring back the positions that you had alluded to, and we can motion and vote on that. You're welcome. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? That carries. So we have that. We're balanced as of now. So now if somebody wants to talk about what we want to do we want to take money out of fund balance? If somebody wants to make that motion, if you want to make it specific for some positions, I know Ms. Wyckoff, you had alluded to something of around 480,000. I don't know, but go ahead if you want to
Okay, sure. I'll make a motion to utilize $419,898 of our fund balance over 5% to reinstate 2 grade 1 teachers, to reinstate 2 grade 2 teachers and 1 grade 4 teacher.
So moved.
Oh, good. I think you're the second. She moved. You second?
Second,
Okay.
and Dr. Garceau just whispered in my ear that make sure the math is correct in the
was
motion. If
gonna
you
say
could
that,
just
yeah.
do the,
Yeah.
math.
So that's, so discussion. So I guess the first question into Cindy, it would be, does that math make sense? I don't know. Again, it's steps and all that stuff and, you know,
Cindy, based on the motion is, and Ms. Whitehall had a number, 400, and I don't remember exactly what she said. We just
419,
want to make sure that that's the accurate number that would allow for that to happen, that it would return the 2 first grade teachers, it would return the 2 second grade teachers and the 4th grade teacher. Can we do all that for 419?
Yes, it's $419,898.
other discussion on this.
And so that's including benefits, Cindy.
Correct.
All right, so I mean, I would say that I tend to agree with what Mrs. Cook had brought up originally about doing this. I, like Mr. Gencarelli was a classroom teacher, and I understand how class size can definitely impact what goes on there on a daily basis. But I also want to kind of reiterate what she and what Ms. Dunn alluded to in terms of, you know, putting this money in. Like, we do want to see some results. Like, we want to see things moving in a positive direction here. So if we're going to make this commitment, we want to see things move. And I think it's also important that, you know, we talk about reaching out to the town council early, but I think it's even more important that you think about it when it's election time of who's getting voted in, and that the people that we're voting in our town council definitely have education as a priority, because we're going to need to convince them that they level funded us for the last 3 years and that it might be time to put a little bit more money in the coffers for the school. I know Mrs. Bowdy has said it, and I'll say it. Our mill rate here is ridiculously low. We pay very low taxes in this town, and there's no reason why the town council has to kind of shortchange the schools. I watched a presentation earlier this week from Caswell Cook on what I thought was a great idea to try to save our beaches for another 10 years for what seemed like a mere $3 or $4 million. And I couldn't believe the pushback that the town council was giving them on that. I don't know what they want to spend their money on, or if they just want to be reelected. It's kind of my thought, but anyway, but I do think that we need to think about it when it's election time of who really has schools in the interest as town council members.
And Rob,
Go ahead, Mrs. Cook.
just to add to that, I mean, to me, even more scary, talk about level funding. As you know, the president of the town council had an interest in pursuing lowering the maintenance of effort. That is a conversation that's happened 3 years in a row. So we're not going to, and that's why it's not realistic to keep asking for these huge increases every year. That's why Ms. Whitehall and I thought we'd use a different strategy so that we're not here with a gun to our head making these decisions at the 11th hour when Dr. Garceau has to get these letters out. That was the hope. I mean, we're just being realistic. We knew they were not going to, with a $2 million capital request, they were not going to give us what we were asking for. So we were just being realists.
Other discussion on this, Mrs. Bowdy.
Oh, just to agree with what you said, Rob, that's exactly it. Yes, our taxes are too low. Nobody wants to pay more taxes, but our taxes are too low, and we don't want to invest real dollars, but we expect a return without an investment. And that's historically what we do, whether it's education, whether it's the beach, whatever.
Other discussion? All right, we'll do a poll vote on this motion just so that we're clear. And the motion is to move the set amount out of the fund balance to fund these positions for the next fiscal year. Mrs. Cook,
Yes.
Mrs. Dunn,
Yes.
Mr. Gencarelli.
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Yes.
Mrs. Bowdy, Mr. Ober,
Yes.
Ms. Wyckoff.
Yes.
That's unanimous.
It's all performance.
I think that finishes up here. I don't have the agenda in front of me, but I don't think we have anything else on our agenda, do we? So I'll seek a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Opposed? Carries. Thank you, everyone.